What a week for Biden. I'm Kevin Cirilli. It's time for the Daily Debrief. Let's get right to it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer holding up the holiday recess for senators to try to get a deal on immigration and Ukraine funding.
The Senate will return on Monday. We know autocrats like Putin and Xi are hoping for us to fail. So we need to try with everything we have to get the job done.
Schumer plans to schedule a vote on the deal next week, but what's on the table? Funding for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and immigration reform.
The Senate cannot claim to address major national security challenges without a solution to the one we're facing on the southern border.
Both sides say that they are nowhere close to a deal, but perhaps the pressure to head home for the holidays just might be enough to get them to a deal. Trump triumphs in Michigan. The former president scored a major legal victory after a Michigan appeals court rejected challenges to keep him off the 2024 primary ballot. Trump challengers in Michigan and Minnesota hope to convince courts that Trump shouldn't be allowed to be on the ballot. They argue that Trump broke the insurrection clause in the 14th Amendment. Both courts ruled that it's not up to them. It's up to the political parties who is on the ballot. A president can't ditch NATO without congressional approval, according to a bipartisan measure that's included in the National Defense Authorization Act. Senators Tim Kaine and Marco Rubio spearheaded the measure and got it in the NDAA that Congress passed earlier. President Biden is expected to sign. Israel will enter a new phase in its military operations against the terror group Hamas.
We are now in the middle of a high-intensity phase with ongoing ground operations, military operations. There will be a transition to another phase of this war, one that is focused in more precise ways on targeting the leadership and on intelligence-driven operations that continues to deal with the ongoing threat that Hamas poses.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the U.S. and Israel are continuing to work on the release of hostages. President Biden went after Big Pharma and said that they'll now be forced to cap the price of medication. Biden said at the National Institute of Health that the Inflation Reduction Act cracks down on price gouging by Big Pharma.
Folks, it's wrong. The results, seniors are skipping doses, cutting pills in half, foregoing prescriptions entirely because they simply can't afford the prescription drugs. But not anymore.
Dozens of pharmaceutical companies will have to dole out rebates to Medicare because they've raised drug prices faster than the rate of inflation. It's been a long year here this week. Here's a look back at our weekly rewind. House Republicans voted to launch an impeachment inquiry against President Biden, but the White House says it's all politics.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted.
Lawmakers in Washington were unable to come to an agreement over a supplemental aid package for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and U.S. border funding. Now they say they'll try to get a deal next year. The National Defense Authorization Act is heading to President Biden's desk, and he is expected to sign it. This week marked the 11th anniversary since the deadly Sandy Hook school shooting that claimed 20 lives. This year has already been the deadliest year in America for gun violence. Russia President Vladimir Putin says that he has not changed his military objectives in his invasion against Ukraine. Putin's remarks come shortly after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left Washington empty-handed this week. Hunter Biden spoke out publicly, but he skipped talking privately to Republican investigators who wanted to take his deposition. The president's son made his first public statement outside of the Capitol since being criminally charged for federal gun charges and tax evasion.
Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad.
President Biden says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is losing international support. Biden's criticism of the Israeli Prime Minister came during a private fundraiser with donors Tuesday, and it stood in direct contrast with his public remarks. Still, Biden and the U.S. maintain that while they have frustrations with Netanyahu, they are still backing Israel, an important U.S. ally. To help make sense of it all, two insiders joining us today are Democratic strategist Adam Green and Republican strategist Charles Moran. Thank you both for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Adam. The impeachment inquiry is now official. Will President Biden lose any Democrats during the impeachment?
He certainly will not lose Democrats. It was kind of funny this week. Republicans were asked by Democrats, what are you even investigating for? What crime? And they were like, we don't know what crime. That's why we're investigating, to find a crime. That is just such a not serious argument that no serious Democrats or independents will support that in the end.
Charles, is this going to backfire on Republicans?
I mean, I think right now that the press and the media is starting to accurately report the depths to which Joe Biden was involved in his son's pay-to-play scandals. And this is exactly what it says. It's the beginning process of the investigation, and where Republicans in the House are taking very measured steps to start to have that process begin, to start doing the investigations. There is a process to this, and Republicans are following that plan very precisely. And I think the messaging coming out from members who, again, are in Republicans who are in seats that were won by Joe Biden, it's very accurate. We need to have this vote, which the House Republicans has already conducted, to start an actual investigation, because the evidence is out there. And with so much money being spent in Ukraine, with so much on the line right now, we really do need to get to the bottom of what Joe Biden knew and didn't know.
No, there's no evidence out there. Can you say one piece of evidence?
All right,
this is for congressional Republicans to decide, not for me.
We can litigate this in the comments section. We got to keep it moving, folks. Hunter Biden, Adam Green, is he going to testify or not?
He's eager to testify in public. I think it's the smartest move ever by him, because he's pretty much calling their bluff. He's saying, I will do it in front of the American people. Ask me whatever you want. And they're saying, no, 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 don't come in. That's a real problem for them. If they want to go behind closed doors, that shows just how corrupt and how evidence lacking this investigation is.
Charles, Rudy Giuliani, is he going to be able to get some legal bills from the Trump political campaign apparatus?
I don't speak and have no idea what the financial arrangements may be for Rudy Giuliani. I know that he's done private fundraising for his own legal bills and his legal defense fund. I know that a number of the people who are involved in it now have been doing private fundraising for all of this now. Again, I just see this as a continued weaponization of our legal system against people who are standing up and questioning the integrity of the process. And there are plenty of questions still, remaining to be answered around that process.
Yes or no before I let you go, and both of you each better just say yes or no. I'm going to start with Charles Moran. Will the government partially shut down in January?
No.
Adam?
I don't know.
That's 3 words. I'm not letting you get away with that. Yes or no, Adam?
Sure. I'll go with no.
We'll leave it there. Adam Green, our Democratic strategist, finally saying a one-word answer, as well as Charles Moran also giving us a one-word answer. Thanks for coming on the Daily Debrief. And to top off the week, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I actually do read the comments. I've got some comments right here at Diana Valdez 3371. Who is this dude and where did he come from? I'm from Delco. I used to work at Bloomberg. I'm on fellowship at the Atlantic Council and the Global China Hub. I also do a lot of work with Blue Star Families. And yeah, I'm happy to be here now at the Hill TV. I actually worked here a couple of years ago as well, before Bloomberg. At Gerard Delon 3844 asking, what drugs are you on? I am not on drugs, Gerard. I do not do drugs. I don't recommend that you do drugs, and no one, for that matter, should be on drugs. At Susan Voss asking, if your girl announcers have to wear makeup, the least your guy announcers can wear a tie. Susan, women broadcasters have it way worse than men. I've said that before. I will say it again. But for the record, I actually do have some makeup on. It's an industry standard. And as it relates to a tie, I'm not a tie guy. Never been a tie guy. Not into ties. Never going to happen. Unless it's a high-profile situation, which we'll get to. At Luigi Mordell Alume says, for what it's worth, Nikki Haley is a total Hufflepuff. Agreed. Vivek is a full-on Slytherin. Disagree. Vivek is a Ravenclaw. DeSantis is definitely the sidekick Ravenclaw type. Wrong. DeSantis is a Slytherin. And Chris Christie is Slytherin or Gryffindor. Still undecided about Christie. And last but not least, shameless plug here, at Canonical Critic, it was refreshing to just hear all of this. It didn't feel one-sided or politically polarizing, just subjective. You know, some of you say I'm a Democrat, some of you say I'm a Republican. I just say I'm trying my best to give you the news in a nonpartisan way. That is my mission. That's my objective. I'm trying. That's it for today's Daily Debrief. My name is Kevin Cirilli. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel, and come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.